Okay, so just a little housekeeping before I get started. My name is Lindsay Tyler, and there's a little picture of me to make it warm and friendly. And I'm the Senior Manager of CELA. You've got my email there in case you wish to contact me. It's lindsay.tyler@celalibrary.ca. So the way that the webinar will work, I'll be doing the talking, at least for the most part. And the way you can ask questions is by using that webinar chat that a number of you have been using. So just as you think of the questions, just type them in the chat, and then I'll pause occasionally to have a look at the questions and answer them. So my plan is to give you a fairly general overview of what CELA offers, focusing especially on what's relevant for people with learning disabilities, and also cover how to sign up and access our books and other materials. And I'll be able to show you how to do that on the website itself. I think the webinar will be about 45 minutes. That's my aim. And so I'll get started because I do have lots to cover. So I'll start with what is CELA? So CELA is a national nonprofit organization which provides accessible reading materials to people with print disabilities through public libraries. So I'll just unpack that a little bit. So CELA is funded, I should say what CELA stands for as well. CELA stands for the Center for Equitable Library Access. I find it's hard to say quickly, so that's why we call it CELA. So we're funded by provinces and territories, as well as some libraries which subscribe independently. In Ontario, we're available through every public library in the province, thanks to funding from the province of Ontario. And in Quebec, we're available to members of SQLA through a partnership with BA&Q. And that reminds me, I actually wanted to do a poll asking you which province you're from and what sort of role you're representing here. So I'm just going to launch that now. So if you wish, you can answer that, and we'll have a better sense of who is in the room. CELA is an organization created by public libraries, essentially, and public libraries really recognize the need to provide more equitable access to books and other materials to people with print disabilities in their communities. So this is really about public library access and making those institutions, that service that's available in virtually every community across the country, more accessible, more useful to people who cannot read print because of a disability, and also expanding access to materials in accessible formats. Because there really is it's hard to find books in audio and accessible ebooks that are useful for this group, for people with print disabilities. So CELA exists also to expand access to those. Okay, so I'm going to end the polling. Thank you for that. It looks like we've got a few parents, a few teachers, tutors, and a speech language pathologist, and almost all of you are from Ontario, but we have a couple Quebecers as well. If you do have questions, I've sort of aimed a little bit more at Ontario, but if you do have questions relating specifically to access in Quebec, I'll be happy to address those. So I'll just share the results of that in case you're curious. I'm just going to get rid of that off my screen now. Okay, so moving along to the next slide. Who is CELA for? So I've mentioned a couple times already the that CELA is a service for people with print disabilities. So I should define that. So the print disability is defined by the Canadian Copyright Act. And, oh, Jill, sorry, but you're saying to move away from the mic. Sorry about that. Hopefully that's a bit better now. Okay, maybe I just prop the mic up a little bit. One moment. Okay, perhaps this is a little bit better. I think I might have been a bit too close to the mic. I can try to speak a bit more loudly as well. So the Canadian Copyright Act defines a print disability, and it defines 3 types of print disabilities. A disability relating to comprehension, and dyslexia is the best example of this. And then we also include people with a physical disability that prevents them from holding a book or turning pages. And then people with a visual disability that prevents them from reading ordinary print, so blindness or low vision. So the reason that this Canadian, the Copyright Act comes into this is there's an exception in the Canadian Copyright Act which allows us to produce books in accessible formats for people who fall into these 3 categories, who are not able to read print, ordinary print, because of these 3 disability types. So that's why this is quite important, and that copyright exemption really allows us to do the work we do. We also provide access to teachers, educators, or parents who are accessing service on behalf of students who have a print disability. So on behalf of people who are eligible for the service themselves. Okay, so I'm going to spend a bit of time on this, what we offer. This is the most important thing about what we do is we provide books in what I've been referring to as accessible formats. So now I'm going to talk about what that means. So we have books, magazines, and newspapers, and they're available in the basically these 3 formats. We have human narrated audio. So this is a traditional audio book that's read by a human being. We have accessible ebooks. So these are like the ebooks you might be familiar with, that you get on Kindle or something like that. But we produce them in a format that is accessible. So it means that they're properly structured so that you can navigate through the book from page to page, chapter to chapter, heading to heading. It also means that you can read it with text to speech. So, the assistive technology that might be being used to read the book out loud, or offer highlighting as the words are read out loud. All of these functions are possible because the ebook, the e-text is accessible. So those 2 formats, the first 2 formats, they're human narrated audio and accessible ebooks. Both of those are different kinds of DAISY books. That if you use our website, you're going to see DAISY format referred to a lot. There's either DAISY audio or DAISY text. So I just want to explain what DAISY is, because if you do use the service, you'll come across it. It can be new for people. So DAISY is an international standard for accessible books. It can be accessible audiobooks or accessible ebooks. It doesn't really matter. Or it can be a bit of both, actually, in some cases. What's important about DAISY is that the books are structured so that you can use them the same way that you use a print book. You can move from page to page, chapter to chapter, section to section, depending on how exactly the book is set up. So, for example, we produce audio cookbooks, believe it or not. They're fairly popular, actually. So, because Daisy books are structured uh, with chapters and headings and sections on all of that, in that audio cookbook, you could go specifically to the brownie recipe in the dessert chapter 3/4 of the way through the book and skip all the rest of it, and then navigate just to the ingredients section and read only the ingredients list in that audio cookbook. So if you've read a traditional audio book, you know that that is not how they work. They're very linear. You start at the start, you end at the end, and there's not a lot of moving around. So that's not what Daisy's like. Daisy allows you to skip through the book as you wish, and depending on how the book is set up. So that's what makes them accessible, essentially, is that we're really mirroring the print book experience. And the ebooks are set up to do the same sort of functionality. So they're properly structured. They can be read by assistive technology. They can be read out loud with text-to-speech, the highlighting, all those functions that your assistive technology will allow. It's not particularly important for this audience, but we do Braille as well. And these books are compatible with popular accessible reading apps like Voice Dream Reader and Dolphin Easy Reader. We also offer both our books in French and English, as well as all of our services in French and English. So the collection is about 20% of the collection is available in French, and that's growing actually through a partnership with a similar service in Quebec. And we also offer fully bilingual customer service and website. We also offer support and training, so the kind of thing that we're doing tonight. We have a customer service helpline where you can call if something's not working with your account. We can sort it out for you. So all those services are included. I don't think I mentioned at the beginning, but I should have, that this service is provided free of charge through public libraries. So it's just a service that you get with your free public library card. There's no additional cost. Okay, so now I want to talk in a little bit more detail about our book collection. So I mentioned earlier that we offer books in human-narrated audio and accessible ebooks, so that's a text format. We aim to offer a public library type of collection. So what that means is it's a range of genres and subjects for all ages, from babies to seniors. We offer, lifelong learning, career, job hunting, everything that you can imagine that you might see in a bookstore or a public library is sort of where our focus is. Because we're a Canadian public library service, we do work pretty hard to make sure that we offer books by Canadian authors and that are important to Canadians. Something we don't do that often comes up in this kind of setting is textbooks. So we don't offer textbooks. If you're in Ontario, you would contact the Arrow, and I've given the URL at the bottom of the slide there, alternativeresources.ca. They're responsible for providing textbooks to publicly funded schools in Ontario, so that would be your best bet for course materials. That said, I do think that our collections have value for people throughout the lifespan, really, and including those who are in school. We have collections that can help support novel studies, research, pleasure reading. And I've put some on the slide, a few cover images from popular books that we find are asked for, especially in among high school students. So you have To Kill a Mockingbird, Life of Pi, Medicine Walk by Richard Wagamese, Romeo and Juliet, Kite Runner, and I Am Malala. So these are just some random books that we hear about people reading in school, but I chose them because we have all of them in our collection. And these are the kinds of books that might be beneficial to get in an alternate format as well, so that it can improve comprehension, enjoyment, be exposed to more complex vocabulary and ideas than someone might be easily able to read without the support from the accessible book. So if print is posing a barrier, then these formats might be helpful. So there, as I understand it, there's probably people on this webinar who know more than I do about this, I'm sure, but I understand that audiobooks and accessible ebooks, where you have lots of different display and text-to-speech options, are really beneficial for people with learning disabilities related to reading. So the ability to just read for pleasure and not have to worry about the process of decoding, the ability to learn new ideas and complex vocabulary without, again, the decoding the print process. So I think that's what we're hoping to provide is these kinds of pleasure reading and support for the for reading that might be happening in the schools as well, to the extent that we're able. So I want to pause here and see if there are any questions about the stuff I've said so far. It's probably a bit dense, so just want to take us a moment. So Jill's asking how to get an account, and I will get there in just a couple minutes. So not to worry. Okay, so there's a question about human narrated audio. So asking if the print is also available so you can read along with the text as well. So most of our books are not, I mean, someone could easily get the print book and read it along with the audio, certainly, and I've heard of people doing that. Most of our audiobooks do not have the full text of the book with them. It's just the audio, and if you read the audio in this certain software or apps, then you would see the headings, like the chapter headings or the section headings, but not the full text of the book. This is something that we get asked about a lot. I think there's a lot of interest in full text synchronized with human narrated audio. I gotta say, it would be, at the moment, very costly to produce. I think that's why you don't see people doing it, really. Although there is some interesting research being done on, and work being done on programming that would allow the text and the audio to be matched up automatically. And that would be really exciting, and it would make this kind of thing possible. But it's a challenge. For us. Yeah, the text-to-speech can be quite robotic. I'd encourage, if you're finding that to be the case, there are sometimes in reading apps like Voice Dream Reader and Dolphin Easy Reader, you can pay a few dollars and get a better sounding voice. And some of them are fairly good. So, but yeah, I hear you on that issue. But certainly for people who have vision, the print book might be an option to go along with the audiobook. All right, so feel free to ask any other questions in that chat box. Okay, so I'm going to move along to the next slide. Just got a couple other little things I want to mention before I get to how to sign up. So there. So for magazines, this is a fairly new service that we offer, and I think it's quite exciting. So we, if you use public libraries, you might have heard of a service called Zinio, and if you don't, it's fine. It's just a service that provides really access to really popular magazines. And unfortunately, it's not very accessible. I don't think you'd have much luck with it with your text to speech, or using reading apps, that kind of thing. But the content's great. So we've worked with Zinio to provide access to their service in accessible DAISY text. So just like the DAISY books, these are DAISY text magazines. And we have 150 titles, so I can't list them all, but really popular magazines. I've listed some of them there. 17, Teen Vogue, Popular Science, Rolling Stone, National Geographic. If you're a sports fan, there's like Hockey News, I think there's Baseball Digest, all sorts of stuff. Pretty great service, and it's just an example of like something that is not accessible, but we think is important. And another thing that's great about these is they are available in an accessible format at the same time as they're available on the main Zinio service, so there's no waiting. I think if any of you have ever had to have something transcribed from into audio, or made accessible, like scanning and doing optical character recognition and all that kind of thing, it's time consuming. So this is available basically the same instantly as soon as it's available to everybody else. So we're pretty pleased with that. And then the last thing I want to mention, for those who still read them, we also offer newspapers. And these are again in a text format, so that I've done a screenshot there on the slide to show you what the newspaper looks like. There's 50 Canadian, regional, national, and then some international as well newspapers. They're updated every day, and I think what the advantage is perhaps for the folks that you work with or your children is that it's a very simple layout to minimize distractions, and again, it's compatible with text-to-speech software. So it's not like a typical newspaper website where there's a very, really busy. It's just the text, and you can do reading aloud, the text reading aloud sort of thing. Okay, so cost for reading apps. Jem was asking. Great question. I should come back to this later, but in case I don't, there's two that I think are pretty good, seem to be most popular with our users: Voice Dream Reader and Dolphin, and then the other one is Dolphin Easy Reader. Voice Dream Reader has been around a bit longer, and if my memory serves, it's about $14 or $15 in the App Store. It's also available for Android, and I don't remember if the Android cost is the same or not off the top of my head, but it's kind of in that range. And we're finding with our users, Dolphin Easy Reader is becoming more and more popular because it's really very good, and it's free. So no charge. You can download from the App Store or Google Play. It's a free app. Our service is free, so it's really no cost, just the way you would hope it would be for access to library reading materials. So, so I'll come back to Dolphin Easy Reader, but that's probably, if I had to pick one, that would be the one I would recommend. Okay, so we also put a fair bit of emphasis on making reading programs more accessible. Some of you who are teachers might be familiar with the Forest of Reading program. This is a program in Ontario where kids get to read some great Canadian books at their level, at their grade level, and then vote for the winners. So that's a really fun program for kids. It's growing and growing in popularity each year. And so we look to provide access to those titles in alternate formats each year. So that kids can participate equally in that program with their peers who are reading the print. We also work with the TD Summer Reading Club to make sure that the books for that program are available in accessible formats as well. Again, so that kids who need access to audio or accessible ebooks or Braille can participate just the same as their peers. And this is a summer program, so it's about maintaining reading through the summer, reading and learning, and reading for pleasure especially. This is a library-based program in this case, and it's done all across the country. It's probably aimed a little bit more at younger kids, probably 6 to 12 would be the target age for this one, but a very popular one as well. So one of the key partnerships that CELA has is with Bookshare. And the Bookshare is the largest accessible online library in the world. They provide access at the moment to more than 500,000 titles in accessible text or synthetic speech audio. Any member of CELA can sign up for Bookshare, and we will cover the cost of the Bookshare membership. The membership would normally cost $50 US per year, so I think it's pretty good value. And the content is just incredible. I can't tell you how amazing what they offer is. It's just, if a book exists in an accessible format between us and Bookshare, you'll probably find it. They focus in the US, they're funded by the Department of Education, so they also have a real focus on content for kids, for teens, and educational content. So they're a little bit different from CELA in that respect, that they do focus a bit more on education. At the moment, it's a separate service with a separate registration process. We're working on that, so stay tuned. Probably before the year's out, it will be a single registration process, and that will be great. But for now, you sign up separately, and I'll walk you through that. So to sign up for, there's a question about Bookshare. How is CELA different from Bookshare? So a couple key differences. You've said, is it the amount of content? That's one thing for sure. There's probably 4 or 5 times as much in the Bookshare collection as there is in ours. It's also they don't have any human narrated audio, so it's all either those accessible ebooks that I was describing, or if you get the audio, it's going to be read by a computer. The other difference is that they work not through a copyright exemption like we do, but they have agreements with publishers, and they're US based. So what that means practically is, for you and the folks you work with, is you need a proof of disability to sign up for Bookshare. I'll show you that. It's not, I don't think, too onerous, but it's something to be aware of. And I'll get into that in more detail now. Bookshare does offer DAISY format. They also offer a number of other formats, Braille, EPUB. You might see that sometimes if you read books, again, on ebooks. You might see the format EPUB, so that's one that they offer as well. I think they even do Word format, so you could get a book in a Word file if that was useful to you. So they're pretty flexible with the formats that they offer. All right, so I'm going to show you how to sign up for CELA and Bookshare. I'm just going to switch what I'm showing you here on the screen. Okay, so I'm on the CELA website, so it's just celalibrary.ca. Can go to registration and just register online. Okay, so let's suppose I'm in London. Okay, so there's my public library. So again, CELA is a public library service, so that's why you need to tell us which public library you're with, and then the first thing we're going to ask is for your public library card number. So if you don't have a public library, your library will be delighted to give you one, and there's no cost in Ontario for public library cards. So if there's any if there's anything we can do to help with figuring out where your public library is or that kind of thing, let us know. But the public library card is required. The next thing we ask about is the type of qualifying disability. So what's the disability that it makes you eligible for this service? So we follow a simple self-declaration model. So I don't need to see doctor's notes or teacher's notes or anything. It's just if you yourself say I'm eligible for this service, I have a reading disability, that's fine. So we're going to ask you next about the kinds of books that or the way that you'd like to get your books. I would suggest that probably most people at this point, if you have access to the internet, you should choose download books and other materials from CELA website, and also choose the DAISY direct-to-player service, because that's it doesn't cause any harm to have it there, and it just makes it easier to get some of our books to the Dolphin Easy Reader app. They'll be downloaded directly to the app instead of you having to load them in, so it's really nice that way. So then we're going to ask about who you are, name, date of birth. We do mail books. We can mail books on CD or in physical format, so that's why we're asking for the mailing address. It also makes sure that you are residing in Canada, which is part of the eligibility for the service. So we need contact information. Tell us if you want to hear from us in English or French. If you're a parent, you could set yourself as, so the count needs to be in the eligible person's name, so the person who has the print disability. But if you're a parent or even a teacher, I suppose, or a tutor, whoever's going to be involved in this person's life and helping them with library service, you could make yourself a designate, and then you would be able to access that person's account on their behalf. All right, so then there's just the usual stuff about privacy, terms of use. You've all seen that kind of thing, I'm sure. And we explained a little bit about how to sign up for Bookshare. I'll go to that separately in a moment. And then you submit. We receive this form, we set up the service, send you an email with your username and password and how to get started, and you're good to go. You should receive that email in no more than 5 business days, usually just a couple days after. All right, so that's how you sign up for CELA. If you have questions about that, just let me know, again, in the text chat. I'm going to go now to show you Bookshare and how the sign up for that works. Okay, so, oops, I didn't want to quite go here yet. Oops, sorry. So you go to bookshare.org. And you sign up. We do offer free organizational accounts to people who sign up with us as an educator, but let's just stick to the individual for now. So the account, just like for CELA, it's for the person with a print disability. This is a US-based service, so they won't, whoops, what am I doing here? So they want to know if you're a student there. So it's the usual stuff about, who are you, where you live, your email, and right. So the next thing is proof of disability. So you fill out a proof of disability form. Oops, sorry, stuck in the field there. And it's fairly straightforward. Again, you need to tell them who the form's for, what's the qualifying disability, and then it needs to be signed by a certifying professional, and they indicate there's quite a wide range of people who can sign these forms. So for people with learning disabilities, we have heard from Bookshare, it's not listed here, but a special education teacher who has some knowledge of learning disabilities. If you have a psychologist involved or a speech and language pathologist, someone who has the professional background to, in this area to say that, yes, this person has a learning disability or this person is qualified for this service. That's what they're looking for. So I don't think we need to overthink it too much, but this part is required at the moment anyway for Bookshare. No, it's a little bit bureaucratic, and I wish it wasn't, but that's the way it is, and it is worth it, I think, if you're able to do it, because the content is really great. Okay, so I want to show you that bit about the sign up. Now, whoops, I'm just, sorry, I just need to go back to my, whoops. Right, back to my window there. So that's the sign up process. I think I'm not going to have time to talk about how to sign up as an educator, but if you go to CELAlibrary.ca, there's a link there to our Educator Access program, and it's a very similar process to sign up as an educator. And if you have any questions about it, don't hesitate to get in touch. We're very happy to help. So Jill, you're asking, it's different in Quebec. That's true. In Quebec, you need to be a member of this SQLA. That's the Service Québécois du Livre Adapté. It's part of the National Library Service in Quebec. So if you go, go to the SQLA website, there's a membership form on there. And what I've been told is most efficient is if you mark specifically on your membership form that I want to register for CELA, and then they will process that accordingly. And if you're not a member, and then you also become a member of SQLA at the same time. The educator program is available to people working in the school system. We have a very similar program called Client Access Support, which is available for people who are sort of other professional roles like tutors, people, I mean, this is a bit of a different story, but if people are in long-term care facilities who might be supporting residents, people in hospitals who, again, are maybe supporting people on a longer-term basis. So really any professional category that is not falling into a school setting where you have teacher and X number of kids, we have the client access support program. And that is, there's a link to that on our homepage as well. All right, so I want to now show you how to log in and get a book from CELA. So I'm going to go back to our homepage. Oh, thanks for mentioning that, Lisa. We do have an Educator Access webinar coming up. There's usually one a month or so. And anyone can join that. You're very welcome. And it will give you a little bit more details about how the Educator Access program works. Don't need to wait for March 15th, though, if you don't want to. Just sign up and give us a shout if there's any questions. There's also a recorded version of the webinar on the website, so you can follow that if you prefer. Okay, so I've signed into the library with my username and password, which I would have received by email. So I'm just going to pick a book and show you how I would download it. So I'll pick a recent Canadian, if I can spell, a recent Canadian book for young adults called The Marrow Thieves. So what I want to do here is show you the number of formats that we have. So this book we've produced in I think every format we've got. So here I have, this is just the MP3. There's no structure to this book, but some people prefer it. Then I have Daisy Audio Direct to Player. So this book will go directly into my reading app. I don't have to move the file. It will just show up in the reading app on its own. So that's really convenient. Then I have the Daisy Audio. Again, this is a human narrated audio. We have the narrator listed here. But the zip means I'm going to download a zip file of the whole audiobook, and then I have to move the book around to my reading app or my software or whatever. So maybe less convenient. I could have the CD delivered in the mail if I have a CD player. Then we have Braille as well, more Braille. Then the last format here is the Daisy text. So this is the accessible Daisy book that I mentioned, accessible Daisy text book that I mentioned. Okay, so let's say that I want that direct to player that I mentioned up here. So I just select get it, direct to player. It says it's been added to my bookshelf. Okay, so that's fine. Now I'm going to take you back to the slides and show what happens in the reading app. Okay, need to catch up here. Okay, so so that book, once it's downloaded into my Dolphin Easy Reader, so I've said that that's the app that I think is the best at the moment anyway. So I've downloaded it to my Dolphin Easy Reader. It will show up right in the app. As soon as you connect to the internet, it'll be there. So there's no fussing with moving files around. So you'd select download, the book will download, and then they're not small files, so it might take a minute or two, and then the book will be available there in audio. So the screenshot there on the right hand side where it says Frenchie's Coming To story. You can see that the headings of this, that's probably a chapter heading. It's all there in the text, but you don't have the full text of the book. It's just the audio. You can go specifically to each page, and these are the print pages of the book. So I can go directly to the print page 11, and listen to that book. So just to recap on the Dolphin Easy Reader, we have, it's free, available for iOS and Android. I think it's the simplest way to read either CELA or Bookshare books. It plays audio, it does the e-text, text-to-speech highlighting. You can buy better voices if you want. And you can either use the Daisy Direct-to-Player or you can use Daisy Zip from CELA. Both work. And if you download the Daisy Zip, it will just prompt you to open it in Easy Reader. And for Bookshare, you just search right in the app and download to app. So you don't even have to go to the website, to the Bookshare website. It's all right in the app for Bookshare. So it's even more convenient than for our stuff, actually. Okay, so gone on a little longer than I expected. I guess I found more stuff to talk about. So I want to give you a chance for questions again, and if there's anything I didn't cover that you want me to, I'm very happy to, just let me know. So can you hear samples of CELA and Bookshare audiobooks? You can hear samples of CELA books. If you're logged in, you just, there's a, if I go back to the share the screen there, I'll show you on the website where it is. Sorry, and so it says listen to a sample of the Marrow Thieves. So you can listen. It's a short snippet from the audiobook, and you can see if it, if the narrator is to your taste and that kind of thing. Bookshare does not offer samples of their books, but you can just download. There's no cost. You can just download it and see if you like it or not, and delete it if you don't. So thanks, it's been great questions. I'm very happy if you have more questions to stay around and answer. Can I show how to return a book? I can't because you don't return books, actually. The books are, well, so that's not entirely true. On the app, you would delete the book. So if I go back to my slide there, I can point out, you'll see the, oh, sorry, what have I done? Just go back to my slide here. So there's a garbage can there in the top right-hand corner. That's how you return the book in the app. Otherwise, it's not like a lot of public library audio or ebook services where you have to return the book after a certain time or it expires after a certain time. They're yours for as long as you need them. We ask that you delete them if you're downloading books to your computer, that you delete them when you're done with them, so that they, the files don't fall into the hands of people who don't have the right to access them. But otherwise, there's no restrictions. So that's a nice benefit compared to a lot of commercial services. If you happen, probably not many in this group will do it, but if you want to receive books on CD, they come in a mailer pouch, and you just put it back in the mailer pouch and stick it in a mailbox, and it'll come back to us. Can you see if books are available at a particular reading level? You can when you do a search on our website, you can narrow it by reading level. So you can say, I'm only looking at kids books, or I'm only looking at teen books. So once you do the search, you'll see what the age level is, and you can narrow it down. There's probably too many, there's thousands and thousands of books, so to show you a list of all of them, it's probably not practical. But you can definitely narrow it down, or in the advanced search you can specify which reading level you're looking for. Right, and so maybe Jill, I'll just point out that you said that we're hoping to offer other, you're hoping to offer other webinars for, I guess, on topics of interest to people in IDA Ontario, and you can also go to the website IDA Ontario branch and see all that. Sorry, there you go, IDA Ontario, I couldn't remember it off the top of my head, and idaontario.com, and find those webinars, and I should be able to provide a recording of this one to you too, and you can certainly share it with your members. So the last thing I wanted to just say is, if there's we're very open to feedback and questions, anything that you want to let us know or ask about. Our contact, we have a 1-800 number there, and also an email address, and our website is cielolibrary.ca, where you can find all this information again. So if there's anything that comes up when you're getting into this, please don't hesitate to get in touch. Yeah, so share ideas for Jill with the for other webinars, and Lisa's asking if we'll be at the ONBIDA conference, and I think we should be. We always try to be there because you're such amazing people with great questions, and you know, really engaged groups, so we appreciate that. Jennifer, you're asking how is CELA funded? So for the most part, we're funded by provinces or territories. There's also a few libraries that subscribe on their own. In the province of Ontario, we're very grateful for funding from the government of Ontario that makes the service available in public libraries, every public library across the province. So that's really important. And so it means that every Ontarian with a print disability should have access to our service. All right, so thank you all very much for your attention. I really appreciate it. And oh, Jennifer, print resources, we do. Send me an email either to the help@CELA Library or to lindsay.tyler@celalibrary.ca, and we will send you whatever you like. We've got posters, bookmarks, yeah, all sorts of stuff. So thanks all very much for your time and attention, and I look forward to helping you get access to the books you need.